be starving by the middle of this year, half of them children. New numbers from aid organizations reveal this startling stat. Every second, an additional person in East Africa is on the verge of starvation unless rain arrives. And every 48 seconds, one person is likely dying of hunger in East Africa. Our chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman, traveled to Kenya and files this in-depth report.
It's hard work extracting calories from what looks like a stone.
All you eat all day is this?
Eastern Africa is in the worst drought in decades, and this is the only food Ikiru and other villagers eat these days. Ikiru says he doesn't know his age, but he does know he's starving. Famine is stalking the sun-blasted plains of Kenya, Ethiopia, and Somalia. And according to aid groups, up to 20 million people like Ikiru don't know if they'll eat today or tomorrow. The majority of them are herders. It's estimated that more than 3 million livestock have died over the past 2 years. Carcasses of cattle littering roadways, many too weak to rise to their feet. Giraffe dying by the dozen. And in 2020 and 2021, what little grazing there was, devoured by swarms of locusts. We traveled to Turkana County in northern Kenya with the International Rescue Committee, where once dependable grazing land has yielded to wastelands of sand and dry riverbeds. This is the Kosapir River in northern Kenya. 50,000 people depend on this river. Now, in a good year, I would be underwater, but this is not a good year. This is the 4th consecutive failed rains, and the people here are growing desperate. Over the past 20 years, droughts have doubled in Kenya due to climate change. Despite its low contribution to global warming, Africa is the most vulnerable continent. Emissions from the rest of the world threatening nearly every aspect of life here. And the war in Ukraine has only made things worse, driving up the price of food and fuel. Here it's up to $16 a gallon in a place where most people live on less than $1 a day. David, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
We met these community leaders who took us to what had been sorghum fields. This used to be a farm right here.
This is the farm.
They once grew crops in this sand, but no rain means no crops. If there are no crops here now, what do people eat?
Nothing.
Then we spotted those kids, including Ikiru, carrying those heavy sacks on their heads. They were filled with that rock-like fruit. There are now up to 22 million herders here in the Horn of Africa, whose livestock provide dairy products and meat. I asked Ikiru when he last ate something other than palm fruit. The other night, he said, when one of their goats died of starvation. Here in the Horn of Africa, children bear an enormous burden. They help herd livestock, forage for food, and they fetch water. It can take most of the day to roll those heavy yellow drums of water to a source, fill them, and then push them back home.
We are talking about close to 2 million children in the region which are severely acutely malnourished. We cannot say in words in terms of what it means for those individuals and families that are impacted by this crisis.
For these children, hunger is as constant as that merciless sun. Kuru. There on the ground, mashing the previous day's haul of palm fruit, was their grandmother. This was to be dinner for the kids and the animals.
How close is that to famine? Because to me, when your only source of nourishment are these palm fruit, that just doesn't seem sustainable.
It is not.
There's no protein, there's no fat, there's no nutrients.
Actually, it's just empty calories to keep you going.
There's nothing else to eat, right?
Her name is Nakaleso. She says she doesn't know much about the outside world. It's the realm beyond that she now worries about.
Does it feel to you right now that God has forgotten you?
She tells us it feels like God has gone far away. Ikiru takes me to try to find their remaining goats, but there was something else out there.
When you hear that sound of thunder, does it make you hopeful?
It feels very hopeful that the rain is now coming.
This time, the thunder brought a deluge. Goats cowering against a hut. The first time it rained in nearly 2 years. We soon realized the cruelty of these rains. sporadic and localized. And what little has fallen has come 2 months too late.
We were hoping that this rain will be good enough, but this rain also failing and being below average will actually result in catastrophic consequences for the population.
A couple of hours west of there, towards the Sudanese border, is the Kakuma refugee camp. Dr. Sila Monte runs the International Rescue Committee hospital there. She took us to what's called the stabilization ward.
Over the previous 1 month, we've had an increase in admissions. We are currently on an average of 20 admissions a day.
The kids are so small. They're so malnourished. I didn't even see them.
Yes.
They just looked like bundles of blankets.
Once hunger turns into malnourishment, the fight back to health can take months.
Yes, the child is 1 year, 9 months and has been malnourished for about 6 months now. Has been on the outpatient feeding, therapeutic feeding program, but with minimal response. Then over the past 3 days.
Every 3 hours, a break from the monotony. The milkman comes through. The mothers tenderly pour the formula into the children's mouths.
Because they're usually so malnourished, the whole body shuts down. That includes the digestive tract. So they're usually unable to digest food. So even giving them just plain milk, they are unable to digest that.
Once a child's system breaks down, it takes months to build back strength. We noticed this mother with twins, her sister helping her. They said they had fled here from Congo. Her twins, just 5 weeks old. They were barely even able to cry, but their mother could. Her name is Christine Denis. She told us she had 5 kids under 5. She'd run away from domestic violence and felt like now there were no options.
Kenya itself, the Turkana region, has been in a drought for the past 1 year. So even ourselves, we are unable to support our population.
And even when they get help, sometimes these children don't make it.
So out of the 20-some kids that are in that room right now that we saw, 3 are not going to make it, statistically.
Statistically, yes.
These deaths take a toll on those whose job it is, like Dr. Monte, to keep those children alive.
You do this because you feel like you can help. But I saw you got emotional just now with that mother. Does it affect you personally?
Yeah.
2 days after that big rain in Ikiru's village, we traveled back there. Those villagers gathered to see what the commotion was about. And right there was Ikiru. His grandmother had just returned from fetching firewood. We sat there on the ground under sun that seemed to boil the sand. The children nearby.
I heard that one of your goats died because of the rain. What does that mean for her family, to go from 20 goats to 8?
And now the family, they don't have anything to depend on, because initially they depend on those goats. And for now that they have lost, the family now will suffer.
But what happens when all of your animals die?
Nakaleso tells us that children will die. Maybe the rains will come, maybe they won't. What's for sure, she said, is that they're not going anywhere. The children there, waiting, as they say, for God to remember them.
And if you'd like to help, you can head to our website, abcnews.com, where we've posted Matt's story and links to organizations that are helping those struggling with East Africa's famine. Imagine visiting family abroad, and when you arrive back home, you are brought into a room at the airport, patted down, and then endure hours of questions. That's what happens to some people who are part of an FBI watch list. And while its mission is to keep our nation safe, some people on that list claim their only crime is their faith. ABC's Trevor Ault brings us this in-depth report.
They're subject to pat-downs, hours-long detentions, and extensive questioning, but they've never had a trial. They are the many people on America's terrorist screening watch list.
It just ended up becoming this traumatic thing for us to ever fly again. I decided not to enroll a semester at Harvard because this had gone out of hand. My kids were having nightmares every night.
Zainab Merchant is a mother of 4 and a U.S. citizen, and she spent years on the watch list with no answers. She and her family were first detained by American officials in 2016, coming back to the United States from a wedding in Canada.
My husband was questioned for quite a while, and I was holding the baby, and then it was my turn. We were there overnight. All I remember is maybe we're gonna die today because, you know, I don't know why this is happening to us. From that moment onwards, it was just scare tactics after scare tactics.
The federal watch list was created in response to the September 11th attacks. There is no due process for people added to it, nor any official way to find out who has been added. But we do know over the past 20 years, the list has grown to the point that now, according to the ACLU, an estimated 1.6 million people are on it. And unlike the no-fly list, which outright prevents people from flying, the watch list does permit people to fly. They're just subjected to extra security, sometimes extensively, when either flying or crossing the border. The Terrorist Screening Center says people on the watch list are known to be or reasonably suspected of being involved in terrorist activities. But Zainab says the only thing she's guilty of is being Muslim.
They have somebody following us the entire time, from the security all the way to the boarding gate. They're right there. It was just us who would get stopped. The children were taken away from us, and they were subjected to extra screening as well. They were being treated as criminals, no matter how little they were.
Zainab says things took a turn when she was approached by FBI agents in Orlando.
There were 2 agents that contacted me. They said that we need information about your mosque and your community. And if you help us be an informant, we will help you get off this watch listing program. And I said, absolutely not. You know, I'm a mom. I'm not a spy. I don't care if I'm gonna be on this longer. I'm just not gonna do this.
ABC News reached out to the FBI for comment. Their response, the TSC can neither confirm nor deny whether an individual is on the watch list.
After that meeting, my treatment got progressively worse. There was a time where they took my laptop and they released a whole bomb squad on me at the airport. There was a time when dogs were unleashed on me. They took out a whole team of dogs to search me.
And then there was this harrowing incident at Logan Airport in Boston.
That day, they were trying to strip me of my dignity when they didn't believe that I was on my period. Even though I went on through the scan, everything was clear. The female officers patted me down and they said, there's something in my groin area. And I said, yeah, it's my pad. I'm on my period. And I remember them snickering at each other. And they said, we need to do a private screening of your groin area. They said, you can't turn back. I was like, okay, I'm gonna be shot, or I cooperate with them. I said my final prayers as a Muslim. I had no one to call and no one to say anything to. It's that feeling of utter helplessness, and just, I was ready to die. And they removed my pants and they saw the blood everywhere, and they quickly just scurried out of the closet.
There are many others like her. 69-year-old Abdul Qadir Nur, who goes by Inu, is also a U.S. citizen and also on the watch list. He's done humanitarian work with the UN in his native Somalia and all over the world. That work requires him to travel frequently, but every time he does, his boarding passes are marked with these 4 S's. It means secondary security screening selection. In addition to extensive questioning, he says every time he travels, his electronics get confiscated.
This is how the government sent back his phone.
You know, when I fly worldwide, I've never have any problem. Actually, I've been respected and welcome everywhere. But when I'm coming to my country, United States, I feel like I'm criminal.
Have you ever been convicted of a crime?
No.
Have you ever been charged with a crime?
No.
Have you ever been
investigated for committing a crime?
No.
According to TSA, a typical enhanced screening process takes 10 to 15 minutes. But Inu and Zaineb say they've both missed flights due to secondary questioning at airports, even when they arrived 3 to 4 hours early. Inu has now filed a lawsuit with the Muslim civil rights group CARE in hopes of removing himself from the watch list. That process, even if it's successful, could take years.
It's possible that he gets removed from the list and never finds out why he got put on it.
While the watch list is largely shrouded in secrecy, the government and some experts insist it's a necessary security tool to protect the United States from further terrorist attacks.
The terrorist threat facing the United States after 9/11 was from Al-Qaeda and then ISIS and their affiliates, and that was from one side of the Muslim sort of world. We still need a watch listing system and enterprise. I just think it needs to be refined, it needs to be optimized.
Zaineb says she was taken off the list shortly after this.
Why? Why is this happening to me? Is it because I'm Muslim? Is it because of my name?
She was invited to a closed-door meeting between the FBI, TSA, and members of the Muslim community in Orlando. She confronted them about her experience with law enforcement at the airport.
I see a familiar face right there, Agent. You know me. You've taken me out to dinner at Seasons 52 and asked me blatantly to be an informant. Is this about entrapment? Is it that because I denied to be an informant? Why am I being profiled? I just spoke my truth. After that meeting, there was somebody who made something happen for me to get off this unjust system.
But the sting has lingered. Some of her family members have distanced themselves from her.
It got to a point where people were giving us silent treatment. Some of them haven't spoken to us since. This thing took a lot away from us.
But she's now using her experience as a reason to help others. Since she was taken off the watch list, she's earned a master's degree in journalism from Harvard, and she wants to shed light on this issue.
I don't fear this anymore. It also built me up to be that voice for people who don't have any. Even though I might be off the system, I am not really free until every one of them gets justice.
Our thanks to Trevor for that. Coming up, the group of internet sleuths cracking decades-long cold cases. The remarkable story next.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast, now streaming on ABC News Live.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers.
In Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
Here at the White House.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
You're along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go. We made it.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
Admit it, these days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
America is being poisoned with fentanyl, and we don't even know it.
Just heard my wife screaming. She told me they had just died.
50 to 100 times more potent than morphine.
Keep breathing, come on.
It's poison, it's pure poison.
A few grains of salt worth of fentanyl will kill you.
Just my agency has seized enough to kill the entire country.
ABC News Live presents Poisoned, America's Fentanyl Crisis. The powerful series, streaming free on ABC News Live.
Elizabeth Holmes found guilty on 4 counts of fraud, facing the possibility of decades in prison. Now, we take you inside the courtroom and behind the scenes. The Dropout, Elizabeth Holmes on Trial. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news, free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms.
National parks are incredibly safe places, but crime will happen.
Hey, Mama. My wife has fallen. She's in really critical condition.
At that time, I thought it was just a tragic accident.
There's still a lot of questions we need to ask.
There were small things that didn't totally add up.
This is 2 lives for Harold that have died now. I was shocked. Something's not right.
This case involves a love triangle. There's anger, there's resentment. It is no surprise that somebody wound up dead.
I was praying. I don't care, be it God or the devil. Don't let this be reality.
It haunted me.
And it made no sense at all. It was shocking.
That night, I lost what was most important to me, and my life just didn't seem to matter anymore.
As soon as I saw him, I knew he was gone.
This was not an accident.
I was raised in South Texas, and I remember coming here being warned about the undertow.
I hope no one blames me for this.
Well, it was an accident, right?
Yes. It was like he got sucked under or something.
She did not administer CPR. She did not call 911.
Every time she opened her mouth, the story changed.
We're going to be together forever. I'm glad it's just you and me now.
What?
So many red flags escaped me.
He knew about her past.
A series of crimes: theft, fraud, and murder.
This is the first interview you've done. Tell me about that tragic day.
Wave of Deceit, the stunning new 2020 true crime event special, premieres Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC.
What happened was just evil.
And stream on Hulu. More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source.
Welcome back. Next to a new phenomenon, civilian divers cracking cold cases for free. They're called Adventures with Purpose, and they have become social media darlings. But for families who've all but given up finding their loved ones, this team has also become a last hope of sorts. Bob Woodruff has more.
There's a hint of magic in this family. To the outside world, baby Oakley hasn't a single care, wrapped up in the loving arms of mom and dad. But for Desiree Carpenter, the love she shares with little Oakley is an opportunity to give her baby girl something she never had herself.
I never grew up with a mother, so I didn't have that to go off of. I try to give her that relationship with her mom that I will never have with mine.
On a warm, windy evening in September 23 years ago, Desiree's mother, 19-year-old Samantha Hopper, dropped off then 4-year-old Desiree at her grandmother Debbie's house before driving off with her 2-year-old daughter, Courtney.
I'd sit on my front porch watching the road.
It's okay.
She never come back.
Samantha disappeared without a trace. Despite a lengthy police investigation that went on for 2 decades, there were no signs of her or her young daughter, Courtney, vanished and missing for more than 23 years.
I filled out so many missing person reports that every time you do that, you have to give them a picture. And I don't have no pictures left.
Despite the pain, despite the anguish, Samantha's case, tragically, is anything but unique. Every year, more than 600,000 people go missing in the United States. It's been called the nation's silent mass disaster, a trend that presents an alarming reality for families and law enforcement.
I lost hope I just got to a place where I was like, there's no way she's alive. She just can't be alive. And I think when I had my daughter, that sealed it for me. I was like, there's no way. There's no scenario where I could see walking away from my daughter. It almost hurt more to think that she could be alive.
While her hope may have been fleeting, her determination was not. Unable to get anything concrete from law enforcement, Desiree's search for answers took her to an unlikely place. YouTube.
Let's just kind of start at the very beginning.
And a group of guys with a boat, some sonar, some diving gear, and a willingness to search in places where others could not.
I had a friend, she was in a Facebook group with me. Somebody had posted that there was a diver coming. My friend saw it, tagged me in it, telling me, you need to get in contact with these people and see, if they can help you.
They are adventures with purpose, a team of volunteer divers scouring the country looking for missing persons cold cases. Jared Lysick and Doug Bishop are not law enforcement, but a couple friends coming from humble beginnings.
So I started a YouTube series called Adventures with Purpose in July of 2018. And that was, just simply getting in the water, showing what was out of sight, out of mind, picking up pop cans, bottles.
When did you make that shift from trying to clean something off the bottom of the lake to somehow trying to find all sorts of pieces of evidence from previous cases and find human bodies?
It became a calling, when a family reached out to me in the fall of 2019. They had seen these videos that we were putting up on YouTube as finding vehicles and pulling them out of the water. And they reached out and they said, we have a lost loved one here in Warrenton, Missouri. We believe that he's in the water. We have a cell phone ping at this boat ramp. Can you come help us because nobody else is helping us?
With so many families feeling like there's nobody to help, Jared and Doug are filling a critical need, going where police and investigators rarely have the tools, technology, and skills to go.
What's the percentage of success on this? When you start searching, how often do you get the results that you want?
For the cases that we take on, between 15 and 18% is what we're currently solving.
So we have a 18% chance today that we'll find.
For law enforcement, I'm sure that the statistics are close to a half of a percent of them solving a cold case.
Their adventures so far are making an impact. They say they've already solved 20 cold cases and in the process have become social media sensations with more than 2 million subscribers on YouTube, racking up more than 200 million views. Today, on these ponds and lakes in central Georgia, they're trying to find answers about a missing father whose family says has vanished without a trace and hasn't been seen for months. Their work is in many ways a double-edged sword, a delicate balance between offering up hope and sobering truth. Failure means another day of no answers for these grieving families. Success means confirmation of their greatest fears.
People call you up, the family, they contact you when they almost know for sure that they will not be found alive.
That's a tough one, Normally they're reaching out to us because they have had a friend or a family member that has seen our show on YouTube or Facebook, and we don't charge them a dime for our time. Same thing with law enforcement. We don't send them a bill for what we do either. We're right there side by side with them.
On this day, they would not find that slim chance of success. Not every family gets an answer to their questions. Not every story has an ending. Sometimes they will go years without a sliver of truth to go off of. But sometimes in those slimmest of chances, on those most wishful of hopes, they find an answer.
Jacob has a vehicle underwater. We do not know what this vehicle is until we dive on it. So I just want to err in caution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please remain optimistic, but until I get into the water, yes, we don't know.
In October, 23 years and 1 month after she went missing, Jared and his team found Samantha and Courtney. Her car sitting in less than 10 feet of water, just a few miles from her home, ever since that fateful September night.
For me, when I went up on the bridge and spoke with the detective who is over my mom's case, in that moment, talking to him right there next to that wrecker and him pulling her purse out of the car and showing it to me, I was like, okay, this is it. I don't have to deny it anymore. I don't have to tell myself that it's not her to make it feel better. It's her. It was so painful, but it was almost like a relief. It was like a relief that she did want me. She didn't leave me. She would have never left me.
People spend their lives searching for purpose, for meaning, for an aim to our lives that makes sense. But sometimes purpose isn't found in the things we do for ourselves, but the moments we give to others that makes all the difference.
I don't have peace yet. People keep telling me at least I have closure. I don't feel like I have closure. I have 100 more questions than I had yesterday. What I do have now is I have a place where I can take my daughter one day and I can take her to visit my mom and my sister. And I think for me, over time, I hope that I can learn to be okay with this.
Our thanks to Bob Woodger for that. And next, Memorial Day by the numbers.
More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source. America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news, free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms.
Admit it, these days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
Take America's #1 news with you, anywhere you go, anytime, free. Download the ABC News app now. Breaking news, exclusives, 24/7. There for you with one touch. The ABC News app. Download it now.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers.
In Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
Here at the White House.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
Here along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go. We made it.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news.
He thought he was God.
He's now one of the most vilified men in the world. He is the everyman. Zelensky is the Tom Hanks of Ukraine.
The fact that a little nice Jewish boy is 5'7" is showing up this KGB agent in the Kremlin.
What do you say to Americans who see Russia and you not only as a rival, but an unfriendly adversary?
Two men at war.
Which Vladimir will take over. The world is not going to be the same.
So what's good to read this summer? Well, Kate and I have decided to jump in and help you.
And we're talking with Oprah, John Irving, and so many popular authors and influencers.
So we want you to join us. Myself, Charlie Gibson, and my daughter, Kate Gibson.
Okay, that's me.
That is you. For the new podcast series, it is called The Bookcase with Kate and Charlie.
We will make sure you love what you read.
Listen anywhere and anytime. The Bookcase Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
The deeper you go into black markets, the darker it gets.
Traffic, Wednesdays at 9 on National Geographic.
This case involves a love triangle. There's anger, there's resentment. It is no surprise that somebody wound up dead.
I was praying. I don't care, be it God or the devil. Don't let this be reality.
It haunted me.
And it made no sense at all.
It was shocking.
That night, I lost what was most important to me, and my life just didn't seem to matter anymore.
As soon as I saw him, I knew he was gone.
This was not an accident.
I was raised in South Texas, and I remember coming here being warned about the undertow.
I hope no one blames me for this.
Well, there was an accident, right?
Yes. It was like he got sucked under or something.
She did not administer CPR. She did not call 911.
Every time she opened her mouth, the story changed.
We're going to be together forever. I'm glad it's just you and me now.
Whoa, what?
So many red flags escaped me.
He knew about her past.
A series of crimes: theft, fraud, and murder.
This is the first interview you've done. Tell me about that tragic day.
Wave of Deceit, the stunning new 2020 true crime event special, premieres Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC.
What happened was just evil.
And stream on Hulu.
Welcome back, everyone. Time to bring out your brightest whites and find your bathing suits. It's the last weekend of May, otherwise known as Memorial Day weekend. It's, of course, time to pay tribute to our nation's fallen heroes as we celebrate the beginning of summer unofficially. Let's take a look by the numbers. According to the U.S. Census, more than 45 million Americans have served the country during wartime. Initially called Decoration Day, New York was the first state to designate Memorial Day as a legal holiday in 1873. And in 2000, Congress established 3 p.m. as the national moment of remembrance. More than 260,000 flags are placed on graves at Arlington National Cemetery, and 95% of companies close their offices on Memorial Day. The day is also known as the unofficial start of summer. AAA projects nearly 39.2 million Americans plan on traveling by car this weekend, with about 60% of American households going to a barbecue at least one day during the Memorial Day weekend, second only to Independence Day. Wallet Hub estimates that sales for meat will reach $1.7 billion this weekend. And from now until Labor Day, about 818 hot dogs will be consumed, listen to this, every second from Memorial Day to Labor Day. Still, lots ahead on Prime tonight. The decades-long secret and the high-powered executive now in charge of the Nike Air Jordan empire, who kept a secret for years about a crime he once committed. A remarkable story. Stay with us.
It was an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new Hunt wherever you get your podcasts.
The deeper you go into the black market, the darker it gets.
Traffic, Wednesdays at 9 on National Geographic.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers
in Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
Here at the White House.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
Here along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go. We made it.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
These days, with so much going on, it's hard to keep up.
While others are recapping yesterday's headlines,
we're bringing you the right now.
This is the busy border crossing. Steel barricades, another strike.
The right now look at the day ahead, how it affects you and your family.
Record high gas prices.
The threat of cyber warfare.
Is peace possible?
World News Now beginning at 2 a.m. Eastern, followed by America This Morning.
America's #1 early morning news.
Streaming here on ABC News Live.
Right now, with so much at stake, Sunday mornings, this is the place. Taking on all the tough questions, straightforward reporting, no spin, no hype, no bull. Thank you for making ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos the #1 Sunday morning news show versus the competition.
Welcome to This Week.
Take America's #1 news with you, anywhere you go, anytime, free. Download the ABC News app now. Breaking news, exclusives, 24/7, there for you with one touch. The ABC News app. Download it now.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news, free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms.
This is a story I wish I never had to tell. It haunts me every day. But this story, it needs to be told.
As friends, we have grown together.
As a Girl Scout, I loved going to camp. The friendships that I made, they were like my sisters. I never once thought anything bad could happen, but I came to learn what murder was.
3 Girl Scouts aged 8, 9, and 10 were discovered today in Locust Grove, Oklahoma.
I remember I should have been on that trip, but I had gotten sick, and Mom said, you can't go. It has stuck with me my whole life. I could have been one of them.
Oklahoma authorities believe they know who killed 3 young Girl Scouts.
I'll get that son of a bitch if it's the last thing I do.
I've never experienced anything this horrific.
I went to my medicine man. I had him bless my bullets. It's been 45 years since this happened.
You're talking before DNA. I started reenacting evidence of the crime that I had.
This case is mystery upon mystery.
Was the real killer still out there?
We tested about 8 other individuals.
It excludes every suspect except for one person.
It's unfinished business.
This happened. There's no closure. There's no pretty red bow at the end.
Every day was a struggle. First thing I'd open my eyes in the morning, it was just another day she wasn't there.
The person who did this to those children should be punished.
When I think of those 3 girls, I wonder what's the best way to honor them. That's why I've come back home, to find answers. Once and for all.
He rose to the highest heights in the NBA and the sports world, but for all that time, he was keeping a dark secret from everyone about what he did decades ago until now. We talk with Larry Miller about why now was the moment he decided to come clean and what he hopes that young people can learn from him now as he shares his story.
Muhammad Ali gloves or signed gloves are always one of my favorite. He was one of my all-time heroes.
Over his storied career, Larry Miller has amassed an impressive sports collection.
I still have to pinch myself that I worked with Michael Jordan.
But all the memorabilia belies the memories of a past he buried for decades until now.
When was the last time you've been here?
It's been quite a while since I've been here.
Does it feel like it's been a long time since that incident or a relatively short time?
It feels like it's been a long time sometimes, but then other times it's like it's fresh in my mind like it was yesterday.
He's the former president of the Portland Trail Blazers, now the chairman of the Jordan brand. And like the icon of the brand he oversees and helped create, Miller himself has become a symbol of human possibility, soaring to dizzying heights, but carrying a secret along the way, which he now reveals in his new book, Jump, My Secret Journey from the Streets to the Boardroom.
You write, the secret will die because of this book.
The biggest secret was the homicide that I was involved in when I was 16 years old.
It was 1965 in West Philadelphia, a hotbed for gangs. Battles over territories erupted into bloodshed and often ended in death. At the time, Miller embraced the power he felt came from street life. And by the time he was 12 years old, he'd already started a fairly frequent spate of stays inside a juvenile detention center. So let's talk about September 30th, 1965, corner of 53rd and Locust. How do you end up there?
I was 16 years old, drunk. One of my gang members had gotten killed a little while before that, and we were just angry and out to get somebody. It was totally senseless. He just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, and regret that every day. Every day I think about the fact that I took the life of a young black man.
How do you not have, in that moment, any remorse?
It was just the mentality that I was functioning with in that environment and in that world. Life is not valued, and I didn't really understand the concept of life and death.
You didn't value your own life?
I didn't value my own life. And my hope is that, you know, some 16-year-old Larry Miller out there that's about to go and do something crazy, that maybe reading this or hearing this story might make them stop and have second thoughts.
He never reached out to the family of his 18-year-old victim. His name, Edward White, is not mentioned in the book. Why didn't you approach the family at some point before the book and say, I'm sorry?
Mainly because I was trying to, like, black that part of my life out. I was, you know, trying to hide that story. I didn't want it to come out. And I guess for that reason, I never thought to reach out or to try to connect with them, because I was almost trying to pretend like that part of my life didn't happen.
Have you reached out to the family?
I have.
And can you share at all the conversation?
Can't share the conversation, but I will say that my goal is to work with them to come up with a way to memorialize him into the future.
Edward left behind 2 children. His sister, Barbara Mack, is now 84 years old. She describes the book as opening an old wound.
He owed the family an apology. He owed the family to correctly say, this is not a stranger. This was Edward White.
Miller pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and served 4.5 years. But it would not be his last time behind bars. 1 daughter and a string of armed robberies later, Larry found himself locked up again. But this time, he was determined to never return. While incarcerated, he used educational programs to earn a high school diploma and college degree, ultimately helping to land his first job despite his criminal past.
I didn't lie or hide it, I just didn't share it. So the question on the application was, have you been convicted of a crime in the last 5 years? Well, the answer was no.
And then you didn't have to fill out applications.
I didn't have to fill out after that. It was, you know, it was pretty much based on resume and things like that.
Over the years, he continued to go back to SCI Graterford, but only as a visitor, to see Wazir Agin Moomin, a former mentor who was also in for homicide, someone who knew of his past and accepted him in spite of it. What made Larry different?
Once he latched on to the educational thing, that's where his dedication was. And he was never really in prison, but not a prisoner to the prison environment.
Toward the end of the book, you quote Frederick Douglass in your book, and you say, knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave. Is education the key?
I think education is a key. It's also changing the perception of yourself. And I think at the end of the day, you have to realize and believe that you can do something different with your life.
That something different for Miller includes taking Nike's Jordan brand and building it into a $5 billion empire, immortalizing the Jumpman logo.
But I still always felt like I wasn't being true to myself, because I was holding and hiding a part of me that you know, people didn't know about.
The higher he climbed, the greater the stakes. Nightmares and severe migraines plagued him, the weight of his secret taking a toll. His daughter Lila, who didn't know the entire truth herself, suggested he write a book. And over the course of 12 years, they set out to tell his story, healing their own complicated relationship in the process. What was your reaction when you heard about September 30th, 1965, and what happened?
It was difficult to hear. I'm a mother. I have a black son, and so it was not an easy thing to listen to. But you know, I just had to really process it and sit with the fact that none of us are perfect. We've all made mistakes. So I was ready to be forgiving and understood about redemption.
Miller, it would seem, has been redeemed.
I've forgiven him. I have no choice. I have no choice. If I do not forgive him, I cannot be forgiven.
While the aim of this country's criminal justice system is said to be rehabilitation, for people like Mr. Wazir, who received a life sentence and served 52 years before his crime was commuted, he mourns that he never got a second chance to do good.
You don't ignore taking a life. You don't. I mean, not if you got any humanity in you. It bothers you. You know, I left a lot. And excuse me, it's the only time I cry is when I think about that. I went at 40. I left at 72. I mentioned to really sometimes act, is this the same person that took my loved one?
It's been years since Miller walked through his old hood. Though far removed, the memories linger.
Does it feel any way to kind of come back to the scene of the crime?
It does. It feels a little strange. It feels like almost kind of coming full circle and, you know, wishing I could go back to all those years and be on this corner and have a different outcome.
Many of the educational programs that helped Miller get released from prison no longer exist, but he's trying to change that.
I didn't have to do this. You know, I could have just continued to live my life, but I felt like I've been so blessed in my life that if I didn't share this story, then I wasn't really showing my appreciation for the blessings that I've received over the years.
Those nightmares are totally over? They've stopped?
I've not had a nightmare, not that kind of nightmare, since I started getting all this out.
His is a story of redemption, of grace, and proof that the circumstances we live in don't have to live in us.
You're gonna lose, you're gonna miss the shots, but if you can learn from that mistake, if you can benefit and grow from that mistake, then you still win.
2 years into the global pandemic, safe to say pizza has proven once again its power to please as America's favorite food. Sales have soared, but so has the inspiration to perfect pizza making at home. Tonight, our Devin Dwyer has a closer look at what some are calling a new Bible of pizza and the unlikely duo of chef and scientist behind it.
The secrets of pizza perfection, 12,000 pies in the making.
We didn't eat 12,000 pizzas, but believe me, there was a lot of pizza eaten during that time.
Chef Francisco Magoya teaming up with ex-Microsoft tech executive Nathan Myhrvold to create a 1,700-page guide to one of the world's most popular foods.
We are unapologetic about loving pizza, and part of that says, hey, you can make a very traditional one, but if you want to step out a little bit on the wild side and try some stuff that might seem crazy, you might find you like it.
Their ambitious project, dubbed Modernist Pizza, played out in this high-tech kitchen laboratory outside Seattle, where chefs and scientists tested pizza techniques in 500 experiments over 3 years.
This 3D scanner, essentially what it does is it allows us to measure volume very accurately. What we learned from this is really, truly how ingredients interact with each other, how they affect each other.
This gives you a more precise reading than your tongue.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
From the texture of the dough to the tanginess of the tomato sauce.
So these are your grocery store tomatoes
the hardest we could find. The hardest.
Okay, those are usually pretty tasteless.
Yes. So.
Okay. Wow.
It's just,
That's unbelievable.
It's like the ripest summer
salty,
tomato.
tangy.
Super flavorful.
I'm gonna take this home and keep eating
I mean, it's like you could eat it just like that. It really is that good.
The team even finding new uses for day-old leftover slices.
We took a pizza and we freeze-dried an entire pizza that we baked. So there's absolutely no moisture in this pizza. You could eat it if you wanted to. It would be like a cracker.
A problem with some dishes that are viewed as traditional is they stop evolving and they stop improving. And I think that's a terrible mistake. People said, you know, I could improve it. I could improve it here. I could improve it there. And that continuous improvement is what brings you things that are just fantastically delicious.
At 35 pounds and 1,000 recipes, Mervold and Magoya's passion project has been dubbed the Pizza Bible.
Pretty much, I think everything you need to know about pizza is in here, at least it should be.
What I'm taking away is that you're really actually trying to empower people to make their best pizza.
The most important thing, that the objective of this book is for people who love pizza to have a deeper understanding of it, to learn ways of making it better, to basically, I guess you could say, perfecting it.
We got a taste for ourselves from the chewy traditional Neapolitan.
This is the original pizza. This is where all other pizzas come from.
To modernist pies on the cutting edge.
So you can hear how crispy the crust is.
This pizza, a take on ham and pea soup with an experimental delicacy extracted from ordinary frozen green peas.
And that's what we call pea butter.
Pea butter.
Yeah, but there's no fat in peas.
The truly perfect pizza, Magoya says, may be all in the eye of the beholder.
Truffles are more than flavor, it's aroma.
But after trying slices at 250 pizzerias worldwide, he has a handle on the good.
What makes Detroit Pizza Detroit is first the pan that it's baked in, which is this. These were pans that were used in the automotive industry.
And the not so good.
I will say that the worst pizza I had was a pizza that had bananas on top. It's bananas, pizza cheese, and tomato sauce. And
that sounds
it's
awful.
as bad as you think it is, maybe worse.
How do you think the pandemic's changed pizza making?
When people started staying at home, they wanted to do all these projects, whether it was sourdough or knitting or what have you. Pizza was part of that as well. But it's also changed in the way that restaurants had to pivot. Restaurants that may not have been serving pizza. Pizza is a great food for making ahead of time, putting in a box, and sending away.
The data shows Americans devoured pizza during COVID. I mean, what does that tell you?
I mean, it's a food that is very close to our heart. And not just Americans, but the world over. There's only, I think, 2 countries where you can't find pizza. Pizza has found a home in almost every country on the planet, so there's a reason for that.
So whether it's take home or try it yourself, pizza perfection now perhaps more achievable than ever.
Suddenly, we're all hungry now. Our thanks to Devin for that. And that is our show for tonight. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Happy Memorial Day, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Have a great night.
ABC News, America's #1.